The wind howled across the barren plains. Dust swirled under the rusted skeletons of old machines and starship wreckage. The junkyard had been silent for years, just a forgotten patch of land at the edge of a dying town. But tonight, something strange stirred. Tom, a tired man with a weathered face and gray beard, stepped out of his small cabin holding a lantern. He had lived near the junkyard for over 10 years. A war veteran, long retired, he kept to himself. No one visited him, and he liked it that way. He heard it again, a low, pained growl, echoing from deep inside the scrapyard. It wasn't metal. Creaking, it was. Alive. Tom grabbed his coat and flashlight, walking toward the sound. His boots crunched over broken glass and twisted cables. He followed the noise, moving past piles of broken alien drones, shattered pods, and rusting vehicles. Behind an old shuttle wreck, he found it. At first, he thought it was just more trash-dark metal, cracked plating, and twisted wires. But then it moved. Yellow eyes blinked at him, glowing dimly in the shadows. It was a creature. Large, like a panther, but not just animal. Its body was covered in black fur and strange armor plates. One leg was cybernetic, sparking slightly. A long tail, half metal and half flesh, lay limp in the dust. It growled weakly. Tom crouched, not moving closer yet. "Easy," he whispered. "I'm not here to hurt you." The creature shivered. It looked thin, injured, broken. One of its ears had been torn, and metal implants along its back were damaged. It looked like it had been through war and then thrown away like garbage. Tom remembered that feeling. He slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out a piece of dried meat. "You hungry?" he asked, gently tossing it toward the creature. It didn't move at first, but after a few seconds, it sniffed the air, then dragged itself forward and ate the food with slow, tired bites. Tom stood up. "All right then, let's get you out of this place." He walked back to his small transport sled and brought over a blanket. Wrapping the creature carefully, he tried not to touch the sharp edges of its metal parts. "You're a mess," he muttered. "But I've fixed worse." Back at his cabin, Tom made a bed in the corner of the room, next to the fire. The creature, now half asleep, lay there without protest. It had no strength left. Tom gave it water and started cleaning the wounds. Some parts were bleeding. Others leaked blue fluid from broken cybernetic implants. He worked silently, his hands steady. Years ago, he had patched up soldiers during battle. Now, those same hands were helping something from beyond the stars. By morning, the creature was still alive. It hadn't attacked. It hadn't run away. Tom watched it carefully. It looked calmer. "You need a name," he said aloud, sipping his tea. "Can't just call you Beast." He thought for a moment, then looked at its dark fur and glowing eyes. "Shadow," he said. "Yeah, that fits." The creature blinked slowly, as if it understood. A few days later, some people from the nearby town stopped by. They saw the strange alien beast lying inside Tom's home and panicked. "You need to get rid of that thing," one man shouted. "It's dangerous. What if it goes wild?" Tom shook his head. "It's not a threat. It's hurt. It needs help." "You've gone soft, old man. That thing doesn't belong here." Tom stared at them without fear. "Maybe neither do I." They left, shaking their heads. That night, Tom sat beside the sleeping Shadow. "You and me," he whispered. "We've both been thrown away. But maybe that doesn't mean we're done." Outside, the wind blew softly. Inside, a bond began to grow, not between a man and a beast, but between two survivors, both broken, both forgotten, and both about to become something more. Shadow lay still for most of the day, resting near the fire as Tom worked around the cabin. The old man kept glancing over, checking the creature's breathing, the wounds, the strange lines of alien tech embedded in its body. Tom had seen a lot of strange things during the war. Aliens, machines, creatures that looked like living weapons. But Shadow was different. There was sadness in its eyes, not rage. Pain, not madness. And something else. Intelligence. Over the next few days, Shadow began to move. Slowly, at first limping across the wooden floor, sniffing around, exploring the corners of the small home. Tom kept food and water nearby. He noticed the beast never growled, never bared its teeth. It watched quietly, always aware. Tom started talking to it. Not long speeches, just a few words. Like, "You want this?" when handing food. "Careful there," when Shadow got too close to the stove. "Good boy," when it sat down without knocking things over. At first, the creature didn't react. But then, one evening, when Tom said stay, it paused. Stop. Mid-step. And stayed. Tom smiled to himself. "So, you understand some of it, huh?" Shadow had wires along its spine, thin, silver lines that blinked sometimes. Tom didn't touch them, but he checked the damaged parts. Some implants looked military. Others looked like they were meant for control. One night, Tom used his old war scanner. It barely worked anymore, but it still picked up energy. He aimed it at Shadow. The device buzzed. A strange symbol flickered on the screen. Unknown signature. High-level tech. Old but advanced. Tom leaned back in his chair. "Whoever made you didn't make you to be a pet." The town started whispering. A week had passed since Shadow arrived. A few people stopped by again. This time, they stayed at the gate. "You still got that thing in there?" a woman asked. Tom nodded from the porch. "He's not a thing. He's called Shadow." The woman frowned. "That's not a name. That's a problem waiting to happen." Another man added, "We don't want alien problems here, Tom. You understand? It's not safe." Tom sighed. "I know what unsafe looks like. I've lived through it. This creature, he's just hurt." "Then put it down. Before it puts you down." Tom didn't answer. He just turned and walked back inside. That night, he cleaned Shadow's side again. The creature didn't flinch. In fact, it leaned slightly into the touch. Tom looked into its golden eyes. "I don't care what they say," he whispered. "I've seen real monsters before. You're not one of them." The next morning, something strange happened. Tom was sorting through old tools when he noticed marks on the ground. Claw prints in the dust, but not random, organized, circular, almost like symbols. He followed them to where Shadow had been sitting. In the center of the circle were small shapes, scratched into the wood. 4 marks. Repeated. Not animal behavior. Shadow was writing. Later that evening, Tom set a notepad and a pen near Shadow's blanket. He didn't expect much. But the next morning, the pen was gone, and a shape had been drawn on the wall. It looked like a star inside a triangle. Shadow was trying to speak. The day after, Tom sat across from the creature. He held up the pen and pointed to himself. "Tom," he said clearly. Then he pointed to Shadow. The beast blinked. Then made a low, clicking sound. Not a growl, more like speech. Garbled and broken, but real. "Shaw. The Tao." Tom's eyes widened. "You said your name." Shadow stared at him, silent. Then nodded. That night, Tom lit a small fire outside the cabin. Shadow sat beside him, watching the flames. The stars above were bright. Cold wind blew through the junkyard. Tom looked up. "I used to think I had nothing left to fight for." He glanced at Shadow. "Now I think I was just waiting for you." Shadow didn't speak, but it moved closer. sat beside Tom like a soldier beside his commander. 2 survivors. Both left behind, both about to prove they still had something to offer the galaxy. Asterisk. The days passed quietly after that. Night by the fire, Tom started keeping a journal of shadows. Progress. Not just health, but behavior, reactions, movements. Shadow was learning fast, much faster than any normal animal should. One morning, Tom opened the door and found Shadow waiting outside, already dragging in a small pile of metal scraps from the junkyard. Pieces of old ship plating, wires, and circuit boards. You building something? Tom chuckled. Shadow growled softly. Not threatening, more like a reply. Tom cleared space in the workshop and began laying out the parts. He watched as Shadow nudged certain pieces together. Not random, deliberate. Tom realized Shadow remembered how this tech worked. It had knowledge, maybe even training. Who were you before all this? Tom asked. Shadow didn't answer. But later that night, he scratched another set of symbols into the floor. This time more complex. Tom took photos and scanned them into his old military tablet. The translation system failed. Too alien. Too advanced. But one word kept popping up. Exile. Later that week, a warning alert buzzed on Tom's perimeter scanner. An ancient sensor, he thought, didn't work anymore. A ship. Not human. Quiet. No registration. Tom looked through his scope and spotted it. A sleek, dark vessel hovering beyond the canyon edge. Just watching. It didn't land. It didn't communicate. But Tom's gut told him one thing. They were looking for something. Or someone. Back inside, Tom found Shadow alert, staring at the sky. Know them, don't you? Tom asked. Shadow lowered his head. Then, in a rough mechanical voice, said, They made me. Tom froze. It wasn't just a noise. Not a growl. It was speech. Broken, guttural, but real. Tom sat down slowly. You remember. Shadow closed his eyes, as if it hurt to think. Test, subject, pain, escape, junk, throne. Tom's hands tightened around his mug. They used you. Shadow nodded. Weapon, broken, useless, left here. That night, Tom didn't sleep. He stayed awake by the fire, staring at the crackling wood, thinking about wars fought, allies lost, and experiments he had heard whispers of. He looked over at Shadow. Not a beast, not anymore. A survivor of cruelty. A machine-animal hybrid made for battle, then thrown away like trash. Shadow's learning picked up speed. Within days, he could understand most of what Tom said. His own speaking was slow, but he used gestures, symbols, and sound patterns to communicate. Tom set up an old screen and began teaching him visuals maps. Ship designs, alien languages. Shadow recognized symbols from his home world. He even drew out the layout of a prison. Facility 1, not on any Earth map. Tom sent out a coded message using a backdoor. Military frequency. Unknown vessel spotted. Possible Black Project connection. Eyes open. No reply. Not unusual. Earth's command didn't trust old veterans anymore, but someone would read it. Someone would know Tom had found something big. Shadow's strength was coming back. He could lift scrap metal that took Tom both arms to move. He leapt onto roofs silently. But more than that, his mind was waking up. Tom saw it in the way Shadow organized pieces. In the way he fixed broken lights using human tools and alien memory. He was rebuilding himself, not just his body, but who he used to be. One night, Shadow stood by the cliff's edge, overlooking the junkyard below. The stars were bright behind him. Tom walked up, standing beside him. You ever going to tell me your real name? Shadow didn't speak at first. Then said, Name. Taken. Burned. Tom nodded. Then you keep shadow. You earned it. The next morning, the ship returned lower this time. Scanning. That it vanished into the clouds. Tom knew they were getting closer. He looked over at Shadow, who was already gearing up, tail coiled, claws sharpened, energy lines glowing faintly. Across his metal plates, "They're coming for you." Shadow looked at Tom. "No," he said. "Coming for us." The quiet didn't last. By the third day after the ship's return, the skies had changed. Tom's old satellite scanner beeped with energy spikes. Shadow stood at the cabin door, his golden eyes locked on the distant hills. His back glowed faintly, the lights along his armor pulsing like a warning. "They found you," Tom muttered, checking the scanner. "No," Shadow said. "They found us." Tom knew what that meant. He walked to the old closet, the one he hadn't opened in years. Inside lay dust-covered gear, armor plates, energy rifles, a combat helmet with faded Earth insignia. He pulled it out, checked each piece, and quietly began to suit up. By nightfall, the enemy ship had landed, far beyond. The canyon, behind the rusted ridge of wreckage and metal towers, blue lights lit up the sky. Shadow crouched on top of a tall junk pillar, watching them from a distance. Tom joined him, using binoculars. 4 small vessels had dropped down, sleek, silent, dark hulls covered in strange marks. Alien symbols glowed red. Soldiers stepped out tall, armored, faces hidden behind helmets that looked more machine than man. "Retrieval unit," Shadow said. Tom frowned. "They're here for you. Alive or dead?" "Alive, if possible," Shadow growled. "But damaged. They may kill. Easier." Tom cursed under his breath. Figures. Back at the cabin, they prepared defenses. Tom activated old perimeter turrets, barely working, but better than nothing. Shadow rerouted power from a backup generator into his own implants. Sparks danced across his cybernetic leg. His claws crackled with energy. "What do they want you for?" Tom asked. Shadow looked down. "Control. I was created, tested, stronger than others. But I asked questions. I refused orders. I escaped." Tom nodded. "So they marked you a failure." "Dangerous failure," Shadow corrected. "The first attack came at midnight. No warning. A drone flew low over the junkyard, scanning everything with a bright red light. It hovered for just a second too long near the cabin, and Shadow leapt from the roof like a shadow falling from the stars. His claws tore into the drone, ripping it apart mid-air before it could transmit data. He landed silently beside the wreckage. Tom aimed his old plasma rifle at the ridge. More incoming. He whispered. 2 soldiers moved in next. Quiet, precise, but not quiet enough. Shadow circled behind them using the tall wreck piles. Tom stayed at a distance, rifle steady. As the first one crept toward the cabin, Shadow struck from above, slamming one into the ground. The second spun around, raising a weapon, but Tom fired first. The bolt hit center mass. The alien dropped instantly. Tom walked over and checked the armor. "Not drones," he said. "Living things inside." "Not alive," Shadow replied. "Trained. Erased. No soul. Only command." They knew more would come. Shadow stared into the distance, growling low. "A commander comes, strong. I knew him." Tom tilted his head. "An old enemy?" "No," Shadow said. "An old friend." The next evening, the sky lit up with a thunderous boom. A larger ship entered orbit, black as night, shaped like a spear. A deep hum spread across the junkyard. Shadow trembled for a moment, then stiffened. Tom could see it in his eye-sphere. But not for himself. For Tom. "They will burn this place," Shadow warned. "Unless I go to them." Tom stepped forward, jaw tight. "You're not going anywhere. Not alone." Shadow looked at him. You saved me. Now I protect you. Then let's do it together. They set traps across the junkyard. Shadow used his alien memory to build pulse bombs from broken ship parts. Tom placed mines under scrap piles. They turned the junkyard into a battlefield of their own making. That night, the enemy came. Black dropships descended like shadows. A dozen soldiers moved through the twisted paths of metal and dust. They didn't expect resistance. They didn't expect him. Shadow roared, and the ground seemed to shake Dot. He moved like lightning striking from above, from below, using the terrain. Like a master of war, Tom covered from the back, sniping with expert precision. The traps lit up the sky. The enemy screamed. They fought side by side, man and beast, two broken warriors, against a machine army. By morning, the junkyard smoked with wreckage. Shadow stood at the center, claws bloody. Armor cracked but glowing. Tom walked beside him, breathing heavy but alive. Was that all of them? He asked. Shadow didn't reply. He looked up, toward the large ship still hanging in orbit. They're not done yet, he said. Tom followed his gaze. Then neither are we. Tom stood outside his cabin, breathing in the smell of smoke and burnt metal. The junkyard was silent. Again, but it was not peaceful. Wrecked alien bodies and broken machines lay scattered across the dust. Shadow stood on top of a twisted starship hull, glowing softly in the dim light. His metal parts hummed, brighter than before. His wounds had stopped bleeding, but something else had changed. He wasn't limping anymore. He wasn't hiding. Something deep inside him had awakened. Later that night, Tom noticed Shadow working in the corner of the cabin. The alien beast had pulled apart parts of a broken scanner and power core, laying pieces out with perfect precision. Tom watched quietly. You remember how all of it works now, don't you? Shadow didn't answer. Instead, he placed a glowing shard into a socket on his chest, one of the many strange implants fused into his body. A bright surge of light burst from the device. Shadow flinched, but then stood straighter, stronger. His voice came out clearer than ever before. Memory restored. Tom nodded slowly. Who are you, really? Shadow looked at him, eyes burning gold. I was once a protector, one of the firstborn from the fusion of beast and machine, made to defend the outer colonies of my people. Then they changed, turned us into weapons, forced us to kill. And when you refused? Tom asked. They destroyed the others. I ran. The next morning, Tom brought out a piece of armor he hadn't worn in decades, a shoulder guard, bent and rusted from past battles. Shadow looked at it and said, You were a warrior too. Tom gave a half smile. Yeah, I was. Not like you, though. You were built for this. No, Shadow said. We both were built for something else. Not war. Honor. Tom felt the words hit deeper than expected. That evening, Shadow began training. In the yard, he leapt between metal towers like wind, slashing through falling scrap with precision. He practiced movements, some like a soldier, some like a predator, but most impressive of all was what was happening to his body. Where his broken armor used to hang loose, it was now fusing and growing, plates smoothed out, lights aligned across. His back in patterns like stars. The once jagged metal now looked like a part of him, not attached to him. It was like his body remembered how to fix itself. Shadow had said the words earlier. Memory. Restored. Now it was clear that power was also returning. Tom joined him, grabbing his old rifle and setting up targets along the outer scrap wall. They trained together. A man in his late years and a warrior beast from a forgotten empire. Tom watched Shadow move, faster than any human could see. But then, something remarkable happened. Shadow paused in his practice and said, You trained well. Your moves sharp. Your aim Perfect. Tom chuckled. I had to be once. In another life, Shadow nodded. Not another life. Just a sleeping part of you. Awake now. That night, the large ship in orbit moved. Its deep black silhouette drifted closer to the edge of Earth's atmosphere. Shadow's eyes lit with recognition. Commander Varn, he whispered. He is coming. Tom sat up straighter. The one you said was your friend? Yes, Shadow growled. He helped me escape, but now he follows orders, like the others. He comes to end me. Tom stood. Then let's be ready. Shadow stared at the sky. He will not come alone. The Junkyard buzzed with preparation. Shadow activated old defense satellites Tom had buried years ago, now linked to his mind through the implants. He spoke softly in an alien language, and broken tech began to light up again. Like it remembered him, Tom prepared his last energy cells. His cabin was now a command post, full of blinking lights and old weapons ready for one last fight. At the center of it all stood Shadow. No longer limping, no longer afraid. He looked like a knight in black armor, fused with the strength of a predator, and the intelligence of a machine. Not a beast, not anymore. Something more, something new. As night fell, Shadow turned to Tom. I was created in pain, built to destroy. But you gave me something I never had. Tom raised an eyebrow. What's that? Shadow said. Choice. Tom put a hand on his shoulder. Then choose to fight. With me? One last time. Shadow growled low and deep. Yes, with you, I will end this. Asterisk. The next day, the sky cracked open. A spear-shaped ship, larger than anything the Junkyard had ever seen, descended through the clouds. Its hull shimmered. Black, cloaked with energy fields that flickered with strange patterns. No sound came from its engines, but everyone felt the pressure in the air. Like gravity itself was heavier. Tom stood beside Shadow at the edge of the ridge. Both watched. In silence, Shadow's golden eyes narrowed. Commander Varn has arrived. Tom checked his rifle. Let's give him a welcome. Moments later, smaller ships launched from the main vessel drop pods screaming down from orbit. They hit the ground hard, dust and metal flying everywhere. Armored troops emerged. Dozens of them. All moved the same. No speech, no hesitation. Red lights blinked behind their helmets. Tom raised his gun. Robotic minds? Organic? Controlled? Shadow said. He did not bring soldiers. He brought puppets. Shadow stepped forward. His back armor flared open, revealing rows of shimmering blades folded along his spine. His claws glowed bright blue. The implants along his legs crackled with power. Tom couldn't help but stare. You're glowing like a small power plant. Shadow glanced back. I have become more than what they made. The first wave charged. Tom took position on a tower, picking targets with fast, precise shots. His years of training came back in full force. One shot, one drop. Every blast found its mark. Shadow was faster. He moved like a blur tearing through soldiers, flipping through the air, dodging fire like he could see it before it came. He didn't just fight. He commanded the field. Even the alien soldiers began hesitating. Some turned to fire on him together, but Shadow spun mid-air, releasing a pulse wave that sent them crashing into broken metal. Tom ducked behind a wall as more enemies closed in. His ammo was almost gone. Then Shadow landed beside him with a thud. Tom smiled, breathing heavy, just like old times. Shadow replied, better. Suddenly, the battlefield went quiet. The remaining enemies stopped moving. A deep voice echoed from above, from the ship. Units 13, it said. Stand down. Shadows. Body went tense. That's him. The ground cracked open as a lift descended from the ship's hull. From it stepped a tall alien figure in dark armor with a long cape flowing behind. His face was hidden behind a metal mask, and glowing symbols pulsed down his arms. Shadow growled low. "Varn." The commander stopped a few feet from them, hands raised. "You've changed," Varn said in a calm, deep tone. "You remember who you are." "I remember what you did," Shadow replied, claws still extended. "I saved you," Varn said. "I helped you escape. I warned you what they would do to you. And now you serve them?" "I serve order," Varn replied. "You are chaos, broken, free-thinking. That makes you dangerous." Shadow stepped forward. "And you came to kill me for that?" Varn looked between him and Tom. "Not kill, recover. I offered them your return, your new body, a better mind." "I am not your weapon," Shadow said. "You are ours," Varn snapped. "You were made, engineered. You belong to us." Tom raised his rifle. "He belongs to no one." Varn's soldiers began to move again. Tom opened fire. Shadow roared and leapt. Straight at the commander dot, the two clashed like lightning. Varn was strong faster than expected, trained in the same techniques. As Shadow, he moved with brutal precision, his staff crackling with red energy. But Shadow was faster now, smarter, and free. They fought across the broken ground, metal crashing, sparks flying. Varn's strikes cut deep, but Shadow refused to fall. With a final, vicious spin, Shadow slashed through Varn's weapon and sent him crashing into a pile of wreckage. The soldiers stopped, unsure what to do. Varn coughed, bleeding, helmet cracked. "End it." Shadow stood over him. Claws raised then lowered them. "I am not like you." He turned away. Varn looked up. "They will keep coming." Shadow didn't stop. Let them. The ship above began to move again, preparing to leave. Without their leader, the remaining soldiers slowly powered down. The battle was over. Tom stood beside Shadow, who now looked more like a being of legend than a creature from a junkyard. "You could have killed him," Tom said. Shadow replied. "Then I'd be exactly what they wanted." They walked back to the cabin in silence, side by side. The soldier and the beast. Only now, no one would call him a beast again. The wreckage still smoked across the junkyard. Tom stood on the edge of the hill, looking down at what had once been quiet piles of forgotten scrap. Now it was a battlefield, a place where war machines had returned, and a legend had been born. Behind him, Shadow moved without sound. The strange glow from his body had settled. His armor had reformed into sleek, smooth lines. The jagged plates were now like natural skin, part metal, part beast, all power. He looked no longer like something that crawled from a pit. He looked like something meant to stand tall. Word spread fast. Local satellite had caught the battle from orbit just. Flashes at first. But then came the scans. Energy readings, explosions, wreckage patterns, and a new life form. Earth's Defense Council sent a scout team days later. They came in peace, weapons lowered, unsure of what to expect. They found Tom sitting on the porch, sipping tea, and behind him, standing silently like a shadow carved from stars, was the one they had been warned about. Shadow, the alien beast, the impossible hybrid. "Is it safe?" one officer asked, barely keeping his voice steady. Tom didn't answer right away. He looked over his shoulder. Shadow nodded once. Tom smiled. "He's safer than most humans I've known." Another officer whispered. "What is he?" Tom said simply, "A friend, a guardian. And if you're smart, you'll thank him." Shadow spoke only once to the scouts. "I don't want war. But if you bring one here again, I will finish it." They believed him. They left quickly, but not before marking the site as restricted space. Earth's leaders wanted the full story, But Tom gave them only pieces. The rest was Shadow's to tell Dot if he ever wanted to. Weeks passed. Tom rebuilt the cabin, stronger this time. The yard was cleared, the broken dropships scrapped. Shadow helped, quietly moving metal, repairing old tech, and even planting trees in the soil outside the junkyard's edge. He didn't speak much. He didn't need to. Every action said enough. One afternoon, a new ship arrived. It wasn't military. It was elegant. Blue lines ran along its hull like veins. It hovered gently and landed on the far hill. From it stepped tall figures armored, graceful and silent. Shadow saw them and walked out to meet them. Tom watched from the porch. The aliens bowed low. One of them stepped forward and spoke in a calm voice. "We came for him, to honor him. He is the last protector." Shadow looked at them for a long time, then turned to Tom. Tom stood up. "You going?" Shadow shook his head. "Not yet." The visitors left after a short time. But before they went, they gave Tom a gift, an orb of glowing light, storing all of Shadow's history, memories, and knowledge. Tom kept it locked away. Just in case. Time moved on. Locals spoke of the strange creature who now guarded the desert border. Some said it was a weapon left behind. Others whispered that it was a god in disguise. But those who knew Tom learned the truth. Shadow was neither monster nor machine. He was a second chance. On a quiet evening, Tom and Shadow sat beside the fire again. "Think they'll come back?" Tom asked. "They always do," Shadow said. "But now I'm ready." Tom nodded. "And when I'm gone?" Shadow looked at the stars. "Then I'll protect the next one." Tom smiled. "You're not just a guardian of Earth." Shadow looked at him with calm, glowing eyes. "No, I am a guardian of those who see." The wind passed over them gently. In the sky above, no ships lingered. No enemies stalked. Only stars and peace. Tom leaned back. "Funny," he said. "I saved you from a junkyard." Shadow replied. "No, you pulled me out of the dark." Tom chuckled. "And now look at you." Shadow didn't move. "Now they all do." Asterisk final line. He rescued a broken beast. But what it became Earth's silent legend.